Well, hello again, friends. Here we are again. This is not a topic that most of us want to talk about or think about, particularly as it relates to our kids, but it's really important to do because the truth of the matter is any kid on the internet, no matter what device it is, will see pornography. Not because they're looking for it, but because pornography finds our kids. Remember, there are algorithms to just about everything on the internet, whether their kids are shopping, they're going on Facebook, they're going on YouTube, social media. When one of these platforms picks up that your a son who's 13 years old or your daughter who's 10 is on the device, then they begin to show them things that they think they'd like. Kids don't know how to navigate porn. I don't really know how to navigate porn. It's just not something that's in our world. And but it's really important that we as parents know how to protect our kids from porn because the chances that they're going to see it are so high. So I know that this is a really tough topic. If you didn't see part 1 of my talk, you really need to, because it's a hard thing to hear and to watch. But it's really important whether you're a grandparent, a parent, a teacher, a youth group leader, anybody who interacts with kids needs to hear part 1 of my talk. So here we are in part 2. I just want to do a little recap of what we talked about last time. 2015, CS Mott Children's Hospital National Poll on Children's Health said that internet safety is the number 4 concern in the top 10 health concerns for all children. It was ranked ahead of school violence, which we all worry about. We think about. Truth of the matter is, pornography is a much more common thing for kids to come across, bigger health risk than school violence. In the top 10 reviews.com, the average age of first exposure to porn for kids is age 11. That's 5th grade, 4th grade for some kids. 35% of the total downloads on the internet. Now think about this. 35% of all downloads on the internet are from pornography. Crimes Against Children Research Center says that 1 in 5 teenagers, 20% of teenagers, have received a sexual solicitation on the web. And about 25% of youth who encountered a sexual approach or solicitation online told their parent. That means 3/4 of kids who have a sexual solicitation online never tell their parents. And finally, according to LDS Living, 79% of young people's unwanted exposure to pornography occurs in their own home. Nearly 60% have received an email or instant message from a stranger, and half, 50% of those kids, responded to a stranger's message. Why? Is it because your kids are wild and crazy? No, it's because they didn't know that the stranger was really a creepy person. So a lot of parents will say to me, my kid's a good kid. They get great grades. They're very conscientious. They're well behaved. They're very disciplined. They're kind to everybody. Those are the kids I worry about because it's the kids who are kind, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, particularly nice girls who get into trouble on the internet because if they are solicited, they have a sexual solicitation from a creeper, they think the creeper's a nice person and they don't want to hurt their feelings, so they don't say get away. And it's really important to teach your kids to recognize what's going on. Now, the Surgeon General warned that if kids aged 12 to 15 spent more than 3 hours a day on social media, and those kids who spent more than 3 hours a day faced double the risk of experiencing poor mental health outcomes, including symptoms of depression and anxiety. And ladies and gentlemen, I've seen it in my small northern Michigan town amongst kids in my practice. I have seen kids who come in and spend a lot of time on social media be very depressed to the point that they want to commit suicide. And actually, a suicidal risk is not that unheard of for kids who spend too much time on social media. Now, think about it. Do you spend 3 hours a day with your kid? Probably not. But your kid may be spending over 3 hours a day with on social media, interacting and watching and listening to people they don't even know. And this is not okay. And this is why you need to be paying attention to it. Kind of hold your feet to the fire a little bit here, parents, because things are really out of whack in our culture regarding the amount of time that kids spend with us versus times they spent with their teachers, coaches, and the internet and social media. So now, where are kids stumbling on porn? Like I said, kids aren't seeking out porn. Many adults do, but we know that. But kids aren't necessarily seeking it out. They stumble on pornography. Where do they stumble on it? Social media apps. They may stumble on it on your device or Uncle Frank's device or grandma or grandpa's device, because those devices are not necessarily safeguarded against pornography and other bad stuff. Any phone that's connected to the internet or which can connect to other people's devices, including browsers, video game apps, and messages and so forth, can put your kids at risk for stumbling across pornography. Other kids' devices, your kids' friends' devices may not be safeguarded. They may not have enough controls on them. And so it's really important that you pay attention to which devices your kids are seeing. Are they seeing your parents' devices or a step parents' devices or their friends' devices? Particularly if the friends are home and no parents around. Online gaming consoles with internet access. I interviewed a young man on one of my podcasts who had actually been sex trafficked by meeting somebody through online gaming. A lot of lonely kids, particularly boys, will go into online gaming because they can chat back and forth with people. It's fine if the people they're chatting with are who they say they are. But again, a lot of those guys aren't. They're creepers. And you need to keep your kids away from creepers. Kids can access the internet, stumble on pornography at school through virtual reality gaming, AI generated art, music and streaming apps, TikTok, YouTube. There are hidden hashtags in these things. And sometimes kids see soft porn. They'll start off with soft porn on Instagram, even. Reddit, for instance, has open chats where they can talk about pornography and it's legal. Remember that pornography fuels sex trafficking, and sex trafficking happens to normal, great, wonderful kids. Sex traffickers don't show up at your house, run into your yard, open your fence, grab your kid, throw him in the car, and drive him to Chicago or Florida. It's not how it happens. Sex trafficking happens online, and it happens to great, normal, wonderful kids. We recently had a 16-year-old girl at our high school here, lovely kid, who had a creeper show up in a car at her high school, thinking that he was a nice teenage boy. She jumped in the car and he took her hours and hours away against her will. Scary, scary stuff. A 17-year-old was groomed on Fortnite by a 41-year-old creeper who paid this kids, and they do this. They'll groom kids and offer to pay them gifts, a cell phone, cards. Young girls can go on TikTok and they're offered money from strangers to send sexually explicit pictures and videos. And I go through it on my first talk on porn about different photos and different videos are worth different amounts of money to these kids. This is real stuff, friends. And we can't hide our heads in the sand and go, oh, no, my kids at soccer all the time, or they're great at volleyball and they're playing the flute, or they're in orchestra and they're just such a nice kid and they're studying all the time. It doesn't matter if your kid's a nice kid or not. If they're on the internet, your kid is open to the entire world to see your kid. They can track them. They can find out anything they want to know about your kid. They can woo them through gifts. And these guys know exactly what to say to get through to your kids to hook them into sex trafficking. So, all right, again, where are kids seeing their pornography? on devices that aren't there. Grandma, grandparents, Uncle Frank's house. Any phone connected to the internet, remember your school. If you don't know what safety devices your school has in place for your kids, you need to know. Go to the school principal, go to teachers and say, okay, how are you protecting our kids from the internet? If those schools are allowing your kid to walk into the classroom with their phone that connects to the internet, you need to form a committee that says no phones at school. Even if they're not on the internet, it's rude to the teachers. Those teachers work so hard at creating classroom curricula, at preparing for their classroom. And when they walk in and they're trying to teach your kids about chemistry or science or math, and your kid is looking at their phone and texting somebody, your kid can't pay attention. You might as well not send your kid to school. I'm serious. If your kids are at a private school and you're paying tuition and they're going to school with their phone, give up the tuition, send them to another school, or don't send them to school at all. Homeschool them. That'll get your kid to stop looking at their phone while you're homeschooling them, because you're not going to put up with it. Well, if you don't put up with it while they're homeschooling at home, why in the world would you put up with it sending your kid to school and having your kid be on their phone with a teacher? It's just not okay. Now, remember, the kids don't have to be on social media to be at risk for seeing pornography. Roblox, Minecraft, Fitbit app, as I said, CapCut, Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I spend too much time on Pinterest. And again, most kids aren't going to stumble on porn on Pinterest, but it's something that you need to be aware about. Discord and Telegram. Pay attention, friends. If your child has access to any online chat, even if they're in a game, they're potentially a target. Think of your kid not as a kid who's enjoying social media or chatting with people online. Think about it in the opposite sense. Who is accessing your kid? Who can see your kid? Who can target your kid? So think about it not from your kid's standpoint. Think about it from a creeper standpoint. Okay. Who can be creepy to your kid? Because whenever your kid's on the internet, anybody can access your kid. And the people that are going to access your kid are a whole lot savvier about the internet than your kid. I promise you. Here's another scary statistic, and I know I'm trying to frighten you, and that's a good thing because this is very frightening, sobering stuff. The Stop Trafficking Project said that the average time it takes a child to agree to meet a person online, creeper, predator, in person, is just 8 days. So what do? There's a lot of things that we can do. First, I beg you, do not give your kid a phone with access to the internet until at least 16. Now you know, oh, that's way too old. No, it isn't. Your kid can have a phone and they can have a watch, but they are not to be connected to the internet. Friends, it is very frightening. If you could see what I see. Jonathan Haidt, in his fabulous book, Anxious Generation, got to read the book, recommends age 16. I recommend age 18. Why? Because the first exposure to your kid to pornography will happen probably, I think, within a year of being on the internet. You do not want your kid to be 11 or 13 or 15. Even at 18, it's a shock, but at least they know how to navigate it. So you may think, oh, you're going to give your kid a cell phone because every kid has a cell phone and they want to watch this and they're all on social media. Who cares? Get a spine, get together with some friends and of other parents of kids in your class and say, we are going to come together as a group and say, no phones with internet access until our kids are at least 16. This is what I hear all the time. Parents will come in and say, and I'll say, well, does your child have a cell phone? Well, I didn't want to really give my daughter a cell phone. I mean, she's only 13, but all of her friends have a cell phone. What should I do? And I look at the parent incredulously. You just told me what you want to do. You don't want to give your kid a cell phone. So why'd you do it? Well, because everybody else has one. Every single parent says that. So why doesn't somebody say, okay, I'll go first. I'll be the parent who's not going to give my kid a cell phone with access to the internet. I'll go first. You go second. You go third. We need to flip the paradigm because parents just don't have the guts. They have it, but they're just not going to act on it to not give their kid a cell phone with access to the internet. They all follow suit and they all know it's dangerous, but they do it anyway. Please don't. So delay your kids' introduction to the internet by not giving them constant access to the internet via a cell phone. That's the most important thing you can do. Then there are great resources that you can utilize that will show you step by step how to protect your kids from pornography or anything else on the internet. Screen Strong. It's a wonderful organization. It'll teach you about the pros and cons of the internet and help you learn what you can do to help your kids, from safety links to what you need to know. Bark, BARK. Very similar to Screen Strong. They walk you through everything you need to do, and they even have a phone. Now, if you are going to give your kid a phone, it's perfectly fine, or watch, as long as it doesn't connect to the internet. So get your kid a nice watch, or you can get them look just like an Apple Watch or a phone. But according to Forbes, the very best watch to give your kid is the Gabb watch, Gabb. I communicated with Gabb. I love the watch, and they agreed to give my listeners a discount on their watch if they just put my name in there, Meg Meeker. Go to gabbwireless.com, Meg Meeker, get a discount. It's a tremendous watch because you can start your watch off or your phone, no access to the internet. And then as the child gets older, you can give up a little more and a little more and a little more as you decide. So you're in total control of what your kid sees when. Ginkgo. It's a new AI app that answers all of your questions and teaches you how to talk to your kids about internet safety and how to be safe. When you restrict certain apps or you restrict the internet to your phone, you tell your kid that they can't have a phone connected to the internet. Don't just go, you can't have it because they're bad. This is going to make kids want it all the more. What you do is you sit down and say, I'm going to tell you something. A lot of your friends are going to have phones or watches that connect to the internet. But here's why I don't want you to have one. One, it changes how your brain grows. Two, it kind of dulls your brain. What really expands your brain and makes you smarter is reading. Read a book. It's so much better for your brain development. It makes you smarter. Looking at social media and just looking at the apps makes you dull, and it makes you bored, and it makes you not care about things. So you recruit your child in the decision to not use a phone or watch with the internet. So you recruit them as an ally. You don't treat them like the enemy who wants to do the bad thing of having the bad cell phone. You don't do that. You present yourself as the ally, and you talk to your kid as though you're allies together to stay away from stuff that's going to be harmful to their brain. You don't have to go into depression or anxiety. Keep it very, very simple. And then just tell them you'll talk about it as you get older. Now, in addition to those things, you need to do what you know you need to do, which is what every parent doesn't want to do. Like when it comes to sex and puberty, you need to talk about this hard topic of pornography, just like you have to talk about those other two things, but you don't want to. I get it. I get it. You don't want to talk about pornography because it's embarrassing. And I'm sorry that you have to talk to your kids about pornography. If they weren't on the internet all the time, you wouldn't have to talk to them about pornography. But because they're on the internet, now you have to. And if you're allowing your kid on the internet a lot when they're 11 or 12, you got to have this talk when they're 11 or 12. So it behooves you and your kid to wait till they're 16 or 18. So you need to talk to your kids about pornography. How do you do that? What do you say? Here's what you say. You say, now, honey, I know that you're on the internet. Maybe you're on the internet at school, or maybe you were on the internet at a friend's house or grandparents' house or whatever. And and I'm going to keep you off the internet as much as I can. But you need to know that when you're on the internet, there are dangerous things that could pop up on your screen. And one of those disturbing things is going to be pictures of naked people doing things that are going to shock you, and they're going to be disturbing. And when you first see them, you're going to gasp, and you're going to say, what in the world is that? And you're going to want to shut it down right away. Good for you. Now, when you see those things, they're going to be very startling, and they're going to upset you. I remember hearing our son the first time pornography came up on his device was within earshot of the kitchen, which is another thing you need to do. Your kids should be only on the internet within earshot of you. It's really hard for a kid to look at bad stuff when you're stirring your pot of spaghetti. So that can safeguard your kid too. But you're going to see things that are disturbing. When you see them, tell me, because I want to know. It's not your fault. You didn't go looking for it. It's almost like it jumps out from your laptop or your phone onto your lap, and it's very upsetting. So when that happens to you, come and talk to me. It's like anything that upsets you. Come and talk to me. It's not your fault. Now, if you have older kids, it's a very different conversation because you're going to need to talk to them about shutting it down and not going back. Because one of the ways that kids resolve their confusion about something is to go back to it to try to figure it out. It's like people who see a car accident on the side of the road. What do? They stop and they want to look at it. Why? Because they're bizarre people that just want to see something horrible and frightening? No. When we see disturbing things that we don't normally see, sometimes we need to stare at it to figure it out, to process hard emotions. So if your kid sees pornography on the internet, they're instinctively going to want to go back to it and stare at it to try to figure it all out. Why is this disturbing? What is this all about? What does this have to do with me? It's causing some weird feelings inside of me. So even if they shut it down right away, they want to go back to try to figure it out. In addition to that, older kids who are post-puberty may have sexual feelings when they first see that, particularly boys who are very visual people, and they're sexually stimulated visually by pictures they see on the internet. So they go back to try to figure that out, and they don't have to watch or see pornography very often before they're addicted, because the stimulation is that strong to many of these kids who are looking at pornography after they've reached puberty. And so if you have an older kid, 13, 14, 15, and you have a boy, you have to talk to them about how their body feels when they look at these pictures. And mothers, you got to do it. Dads, you got to do it. It doesn't matter which parent in the family does it, whoever's most comfortable talking about it, knowing that neither one of you is going to be comfortable talking about it. The one who's the most comfortable or the least comfortable should do the talking. Now, then you talk about that, and you tell them never share personal information online. You don't share your name, your phone number, your address, where you go to school, where your grandparents live, or anything. You don't even tell them the town that you live in. You talked about them about the dangers of online chats. Now, your kids are going to say, but it's okay because I know these people. You really don't. Now, if they know it's their friend and they know the name of their friend and that person, they've chatted with them before, maybe that's okay. But if they want to chat with a friend, they can text, they can call them. No online chats. Now, never, ever, ever send nude pictures to somebody, ever. But you really need to understand this, parents. A lot of times kids in elementary school and older will use nude photos as a way to blackmail your nice daughter. For instance, a guy in her class who's a jerk will come up to her and say, if you don't send me a picture of yourself naked, I'm going to tell everybody in the class about your mother or your father or something bad about you. So you better send that to me or I'm going to start talking tomorrow. Now, the poor kid, too embarrassed to tell their parents, goes home, takes a snapshot, sends it to the kid, and guess what happens? It's on the internet for good, and he's going to show it to all of his friends, no matter what he said. Tell your daughters, if anybody ever asks you to send a picture of yourself naked, please come and talk to me. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not going to blame you. It's not your fault. I need to know. And no matter what you do, never, ever send a picture of any part of your body naked. Now, what are the other things that you can do? Although, in addition to that, see what your kids see. It takes time, but you have to do it. Look at their social media. Look at the games they're playing. Listen to the music that they're listening to. You have to know all of these things. Some parents say, I don't want to, impinge on my kids' privacy and look at their social media. Look at their social media. This is a safety issue. It's not about somebody's privacy. No kid who lives in your house should be able to live in a private world. They shouldn't be able to live in a private world because it's far too dangerous. So forget the stuff about trust, forget the stuff about independence, and forget the stuff about privacy. Your kid's health, emotional, physical, mental health, is far more important and to take care of that than any concerns about their privacy. They can have privacy when they go off to college, but while they're in your home, privacy is gone. It's gone. Okay. So you need to see what they're seeing. Think about your router. When was the last time you thought about your router? You think, router? Why are you talking about your router? Your router lets everything in your house. It's like your front door. If you open your front door, it's like opening up your router. Everything can get into your house via the internet. So you need to look at what's going on with your router. It's the most important digital device in your home when it comes to preventing issues with pornography. What kind of filters does your router have on it? What kind of time controls? Does it have VPN blockers? Does it have other monitoring features that can prevent harm from coming into your home? If you have an old router, get a new router. Make sure it's a very sophisticated, up-to-date router that has as many controls on it as possible. Remember, that's the door. Your router is the door to your home. Now, remember that young children most often use Wi-Fi only devices like a Chromebook or a tablet or a smart TV, MacBook. And this means that those things depend on your router to connect to the internet. So a good router should be able to lock safe search or YouTube restricted modes, block pop-ups, and prevent access to harmful sites. That's what a good router should be able to do. So a good router should be able to prevent accidental childhood exposure to pornography. What else can you do? You need to think about other places where your kids can access pornography: the bathroom, the bedroom, buses, sleepovers, and as I said, Grandma and Grandpa's house. I don't know why I'm picking on grandmas and grandfathers. Probably because I am really not very savvy about this stuff, and I'm very cautious when kids come over to my house that they can't get on my phone, they can't get on my computer, whatever, because they're probably not safeguarded well enough. But yours will be, because you're a lot smarter than I. So anyway, but just make sure wherever they go, just like you want to know what parents are at home watching over your child, you need to know what internet filters are in that home and school that are going to keep your kids safe from seeing awful stuff on the internet. Parental controls. Parental controls are very important. You want to have them on phones or other devices that can let you block specific apps and websites. For phones or tablets, if you have an Apple device, use the screen time option to restrict explicit apps, websites, games, and more. And this includes movies and television shows that you don't want your kids to see. If you have an Android device, set up parental controls on Google Play. This will prevent your child from downloading apps that aren't age appropriate. You can also use the Google Family Link app to set up filters. For desktop and laptops, if you have a Mac, choose restrictions for what your child can play and search and download with the screen time program. If you have a PC, check out Microsoft Family Safety. If you have a Chromebook, you can use Google Family Link app to block sexually explicit or violent content and manage which websites your child can go to. Now let's talk about software. There are great programs that will give you a lot of peace of mind. So go online and explore options based on your family's budget and needs. Some of them are free, but a lot of them aren't. Review the settings, try out free trials from reputable companies to get a sense of what they offer. Options can range from blocking certain websites to getting alerts if your child uses specific search terms. Very, very good programs out there. So ask your friends, go to Screen Strong, and go to Block and learn what you need to learn about. Now, let's talk about how to monitor things on multiple devices. I mentioned Bark, B-A-R-K. Go to Bark and check it out. And as I said, they'll walk you through everything. That's the best monitoring for multiple devices, phone, laptop, tablets, and so forth. The best monitoring system for Android devices is Boomerang. Boomerang. Check it out. It is $15.99 per device per year. But listen, friends, all of these devices are so worth the money. Okay. Now, the best for mobile monitoring is Family Time Premium. Family Time Premium. Mobicip. Maybe it's Mobicip. I'm not sure. Mobicip. Mobicip. Best for activity scheduling. Best for establishing online rules, which are very important. Norton Family. Norton Family. It's a very good company. It's been around a long time. Check it out. Best for web filtering is Custodio. Custodio. Best for big families, Net Nanny. It's been around for a long time, but it's very, very good. Now we talk about hardware. So look at your existing setup. Your internet router may be filtering all you need it to filter. But if not, check out other available products. Look for products that'll work with your router. Circle Home Plus and Griffon, Gryphon, are popular with families. If you're buying a new router, search for one, as I said, with advanced features and parental controls. And it's always a good idea to upgrade your router. Select which devices you want to monitor. You know, the big advantage of router filters is because it acts like a doorway. It allows you to choose what you want to monitor and what you don't. Now, if you want to learn more about how you can protect your teens from pornography, there's so much out there. I would start with the Common Sense Report 2023, Teens and Pornography. Also, go to educateempowerkids.org. Educateempowerkids.org. Here's some other places that you can go to. How to block porn on internet-connected devices. Second, overcomingpornography.org. Third, protecting your child's privacy online. 5 free ways to protect your kids online. And fifth, Utah Coalition Against Pornography. Friends, that's just a handful of things. There's so much available to you for education and software and hardware that you can use to really keep your kids safe, or at least to do the best that you can to keep your kids safe. So really the problem isn't what can you do? The problem is, do you think this is an issue that's serious enough to take the time to figure out how to safeguard your kids? That's the problem. The problem is that you don't have enough information. The problem is that you may not want to face what your kids are up against. And if you have given your kid a phone with access to the internet at age 10 or 13, chances are you're going to want to gloss all of this over because you don't want to realize how much your child is exposed to. via their phone. And I want to say something too. If you've given your kid a phone too early with access to the internet, there's no reason at all you can't say, we're going to switch out your phone. I've just learned some things about phones that aren't really healthy for you. So I'm going to swap your phone out, and your kid's going to throw a fit. Oh, well. Oh, well. His mind and heart and soul are worth protecting. So that's why you back up, you get him a Gab phone, or you go to Bark, but you get him a safer phone now, so that we don't end on a horrible note, because that's kind of a downer. Let's talk about the fun things that you can do with your kids. There's so many fun things you can do. Now, a lot of the fun things are the retro games, the older games. So where do you start? Go back to some of the retro games that are really fun to play, that are safe. Nintendo Wii from 2006. Hopefully your kids have never heard about it. You may have played it when you were younger, but guess what? If your kids haven't heard about it, they're going to feel it's really cool to do something retro and old like you are. So you can go to Wii Sports, Mario Kart Wii, and Just Dance. Okay. The latter Wii U looks similar, but added more features online. So stick with the original Wii if you want to avoid internet risks. So the original Wii, not the upgraded one, Super Nintendo, the NES Classic Edition. These are mini plug and play reissues that come preloaded with dozens of classic games, and they hook easily into modern televisions. The original NES Super Nintendo, if you'd rather go authentic, the originals still work great with cartridges that are widely available used. And there are over 700 NES games and 1,700 Super Nintendo games that are officially released. There's no good excuse for you to be playing violent, horrible games with your kids. No excuse. It changes their brain growth. These sexually explicit, violent games for boys should be off limit in your home till they're at least 18 years old. Look at all these games I've talked about playing with your kids. Keep them out of the garbage games. You want to play with them, and whatever you want to do with your brain is, you do, but not for your kids. PlayStation 2, it's still the best-selling console of all time. It has a massive library of multiplayer, family-friendly games. And plus, it plays the original PlayStation discs as well. Nintendo GameCube, Mario Kart, Double Dash, Super Smash Brothers, Melee, and Mario Party, Sega Genesis or Genesis Mini. It's a nostalgic choice for side scrollers and 16-bit adventures. There's no paucity of fun games that you can play or your kids can play. Now, I know that your kids are going to whine about the latest and the greatest and the most dangerous and the most pushing the envelope, horrible game, but don't give in. Think about it. Whenever you give a kid a cell phone with access to the internet, you're exposing your child's brain to potentially horrible stuff. When you give your kid permission to play a violent and sexually overloaded video game with too many sexual images on it, you are giving permission for your kid's brain to be rewired in a very unhealthy manner. Yes, violence and pornography and games that have sexually explicit material change your child's brain wiring of the neurons in their brain, and it changes their intellect because it clips off all of the good neurons that want to operate in your child's brain. So in other words, if you think about your child's neurons like a tree, if you use one set of branches over and over and over, those branches get bigger. If you use another set of branches hardly at all, they get snipped off. So guess what? If you encourage your child to take the branches where they read, they listen to music, they have conversations, they write, those are the branches that get stronger and longer. If, however, you feed the branches in your child's brain that are filled with violent material, video games, movies, music, or you allow them exposure to a lot of sexually explicit materials, social media, and that kind of a thing, those branches get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what happens to the ones that you really want to grow? They begin to shrink. So it's really like it's neuron pruning, if you will. It's very real, a phenomenon that happens in a child's brain, even when the child is into their 20s, because they're still kind of kids, at least before 25, because they don't have full cognitive development. Anyway, so you can get bundles of these games on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Bookman's Garage Sales, local game stops. They're everywhere. I recently saw a 20-game bundle on eBay for like $170. And, beyond the savings and the simplicity to your life, the real winner is that you get some peace. You don't have to walk into every room or think about your kid on their phone or on their laptop, and you minimize the risk of hearing your kids scream from another room when they just saw pornography. So it's very, very important that you work at this and give yourself some peace. Now, a lot of kids who are going to play games online and talk to people are not going to get harmed, okay? But from my standpoint, I didn't go into medicine and become a pediatrician to make sure that healthy kids are healthy. My job is to make sure out of 100 kids, if there are 2 or 3 who are sick, that I help those kids. So I don't really care about statistics. As far as I'm concerned, 100% of kids that I come in contact with deserve the very best prevention and treatment I can give. And I would say the exact same thing for you. 100% of kids in your home, whether you have 1 or whether you have 8 kids, and Lord have mercy on your soul if you have more than that. But your job is to keep every single one of those kids as safe and healthy as you possibly can. You never want to come to a point where you thought, oh my gosh, I thought my kid was safe online, and I just realized they saw something terrible and I could have prevented it. You never want to be in a position where you have to say, where was I? What was I thinking? And I will guarantee you there are a lot of parents with teenagers who've had trouble with their kids, who've been traumatized by social media, gaming, whatever, who say, what was I thinking to give my kid a cell phone with internet access when they were 12 or 13? Now, I know that a lot of this can feel frightening. Good. I hope you're scared because it's frightening. But I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. As I walked through, there are answers for every single one of you. Your kid's going to be at risk when they're on the internet, but your job is to protect them as much as you possibly can. And that's all you can do. That's all you can possibly do. So walk through the steps that I went through with you earlier, because there are great helps available to you. Screen Strong, Bark, the Gab phone, and so on and so forth. So there really is no excuse to allow your child to be at risk for seeing really bad stuff. Do your due diligence. You want to feed good food to your kid. You want them to read good books. You want them to have good friends. You want them to go to a good school. For heaven's sakes, get your internet as safe as you possibly can. And that's how you really win your kids as a parent. So remember, never parent out of fear. Never parent out of fear. Parent out of strength and be wise. Thanks for listening.